One last quick story for today, and I'm going to wrap it up, which is, I called it Trump Tramples the Democrat Election Scheme. Okay, this is a really important thing to understand. It didn't get a lot of attention in the media, but I just want to plant this seed, and you think about why President Trump would do this. You may recall that previously, when it was coming time to create our census, President Trump had urged, it happens to be that the Department of Commerce has control, has the jurisdiction to create the census. And so the census was going to be created, and they always have the questions, and they fuss about the questions. It's required by the Constitution every 10 years, so we got to do it. But there was a question whether or not on this census upcoming in 2021, could we, or right now it's happening, and the results will be for 2021. Could we put a question about whether or not you are legally, are you here legally? What's your legal status? I mean, the whole goal of the census is to accurately know how many people we have here and how many people we have in various jurisdictions, cities, counties, states, how many people are living everywhere. And the idea was we could put in the census a question, are you here legally? What is your legal status? You may be a green card, you may be a longtime citizen, you may be an illegal alien. But they were saying, let's put it in the census and ask. Let's understand how many people being counted in this census actually have no legal right to be here. And the Supreme Court blocked that. But to be really clear, the Supreme Court blocked it on a technicality because the argument was that the census, the Commerce Department didn't follow the proper procedure in getting that question placed on the census. So there's some possibility that in 10 more years, when we do the next census, that they can look into that. But that's all kind of water under the bridge. The census is out. But right now, what happens, and to understand among the reasons it's important, is that in our country, we have our members of Congress, U.S. Congress. Every member of Congress is supposed to represent, roughly speaking, the same number of citizens. And so, you have obviously, I think you all know this, but the U.S. Senate is different. We have 50 states. We have 2 senators from every state. So 2 senators represent, so there's 100 senators, 2 senators represent the smallest state, 2 senators represent the biggest states. I mean, it's just different. But House Representatives is proportional. And the idea of counting is to be able to assure that more or less every member of the U.S. House represents, roughly speaking, the same number of people. I meant to look it up. I think it's 750,000, whatever the number is like that every member of Congress, maybe more like 600,000, that's what they represent. So President Trump issued an executive order essentially directing the Census Bureau to exclude illegally present aliens from the population counts that are used to apportion seats in the House of Representatives. So, easy math, say you had a city that had 100,000 people. So you count that city as having 100,000 people. In the apportioning, creating new House districts, which we do every 10 years, you count that city as 100,000 people. Well, if 20,000 of those 100,000 are illegal aliens, Trump is saying then that city counts for 80,000. Not 100,000, because 20,000 have no right to be here. He's saying that the House apportionment should be made based on number of actual citizens, not including illegal aliens. And the consequences are kind of huge, because right now we have concentrations of illegal aliens in the big cities. We have concentrations, especially these cities that simply, they call themselves sanctuary cities. They don't apply the immigration laws. They never deport people. They never turn people in. So you have cities with huge concentrations of illegal aliens. And Trump is saying those people should not count when you're deciding, when you're counting for purposes of the House of Representatives representation, the apportionment of House seats. And the consequence is this. If you have those cities that have, let's say, really only 80,000 legal residents, then you don't have the 20,000 illegal aliens having they're not counted toward representation. The point of it is you're going to decrease the power of illegal aliens in the election of members of Congress. You're going to give less power to the illegal aliens and more power to the areas in our country, rural and just less of the big cities, where there's a far smaller concentration of illegal aliens. So people outside the cities have more representation when the cities are not allowed to fatten up their numbers with illegal aliens. So it's a brilliant stroke that he's saying, for the time of House proportional representation, we're not going to count the illegal aliens. So he did this via executive order. As you might imagine, the ink was barely dry. The ACLU says they're going to legally challenge it. But I think it's a great idea. And to understand this doesn't benefit Trump. The election will be over in this November. The election will be over for him. It doesn't benefit him in this election. But going forward, it raises the question, why is it we're allowing illegal aliens, or more broadly speaking, allowing the Democrat Party that fosters illegal aliens, that pushes the increase of illegal aliens, that uses illegal aliens for all sorts of reasons? Why do we allow them to be counted in the apportionment when we get around to the question of assigning House member districts? So it's a brilliant stroke by President Trump. ACLU is having a meltdown, and it'll be challenged in court. But it's another example of the way it's another one of the draining the swamp moves by this president that just basically says you can't keep on this endless track, Democrats, of allowing more and more illegal aliens in this country, use them in the census, by the way, because they're counting the census and they're not distinguished in the census. It counts for how much aid cities get from the government, how much aid they get in all sorts of ways. It brings money into the cities and counties that harbor illegal aliens because they're counted in the census. But at least he's saying on this narrow area, in an apportionment of U.S. House Representative districts, we shouldn't be counting him. He's absolutely right. Great stroke on his part. We'll see how it ends up in the court. Frankly, we can't even count on the Supreme Court anymore to do the right thing. But we'll see what happens. It was a great idea, and it really has to do with a topic I love talking about. I'm out of time today, but other times we will. The importance of the meaning of the concept of citizenship in America. The left loves to ignore the concept as even existing, but the whole concept of citizenship, it is as part of a sovereign nation. You have people who are citizens who have made essentially their social compact, their commitment that they live in this country, they commit to follow the laws, they are protected as citizens, they participate as citizens, and they have rights and obligations as citizens. That's what citizenship means. That's what the left tries to ignore all the time, tries to just weaken the idea of citizenship, because then it allows them to do more and more of their importation of illegal aliens, whom they see as their future Democrat Party permanent voting base. Majority. That's why they are so open to illegal aliens. It's not sympathy, it's not kindness. It's because they ultimately think, the Democrat Party thinks, ultimately illegal aliens entering this country long enough will become eventually citizens who back the Democrat Party and all of their mindset, all of their giveaways, all of their freebies, all of their disrespect for the idea of America. So Trump is working on something not even to benefit him, but to benefit moving forward the way we have representation in the House of Representatives.